This looks like a gun. Someone is gonna shoot at me, man. I'm gonna get crazy looks in public with this thing. Welcome back, DPReview TV viewers. Chris Nichols here from DPReview. And I just want to say, I know there's a lot of rumors going on right now, lots of exciting stuff, you know. Why aren't we reviewing a big camera? Well, we got a really amazing opportunity to test out this crazy new Laowa. And we saw this a couple years ago at Photokina. Well, now we've got the real deal finally finished, so we could not pass up this opportunity. So this is pretty awesome. This is a 24mm wide angle lens, F14, built into this crazy long tube. And the front section has built-in LEDs and it's water sealed. So right off the bat, let's just get out of the way. I'm gonna give you guys like 4 seconds, make your jokes. So in all seriousness now, like, how can we use this lens? Well, it does give us the opportunity to place this lens into interesting places. Again, you just made your jokes, but we'll come back to that. You know, I mean, could you use this for industrial uses? Could you use this for bugs and insects? Putting it underwater like we have here at the pond? I mean, we're gonna give it a try. We're gonna have some fun today. This is just a neat look at what this lens can do. I've got it mounted here with a calm light adapter onto a Sony A7S. I like the high ISO performance of the sensor. We're not looking for quick shooting today, but we're gonna give it a fun play, see what it can do. Is this a silly toy or a very useful tool? We get to do a lens review. Does that sound good?
No.
Kai, you wanna do a lens review? The tip of this lens is waterproof, so I can certainly pop it down here and take pictures. The only thing you gotta be careful is you don't go above this USB port. I'm assuming that's not waterproof. Well, maybe we'll find out today. You know, Laowa is no stranger to making, well, strange lenses. I mean, that's kind of their thing, but you so often see telephoto macros on the market, and for good reason. They give you working distance. They give you that space between the front of the lens and your subject. So if it's skittish, like a bug or something like that, it hopefully won't fly away on you. But at the same time, wide angle formulas naturally do often very good close-up capabilities. And so what Laowa is doing here is making a 24mm lens at the end of this tube. You do have to get physically very close to your subjects to do macro. We're gonna play with that in a bit, but you don't have to get the camera close, you just have to be able to insert the lens close. Okay, so I just had a little interesting experiment here. I was a little skeptical about this lens for shooting insects just because you gotta get so physically close that you're probably gonna spook them, but actually I was shooting some wasps here. They were very accommodating, and honestly it was neat because I would never shoot wasps with a macro, right? I mean, you're gonna get stung, right? I've been stung quite a few times doing these videos. I never wanna do it again, but with this distance, I actually felt quite safe and they were fairly accommodating. Now, using a wide angle macro is a pretty interesting experience, and there aren't many out there. Laowa does make a 15mm, which is also another cool lens, but I like the 24mm aesthetic, and of course I can focus to infinity with this lens. At F14, everything's in focus whether I like it or not. But you can also do some neat stuff because you can do close-up shots, but then get that wide, three-dimensional, expansive background and behind it. So it's a neat kind of look. Now, today we've got the Laowa lens in a Canon mount, and I've got it mounted here with the adapter onto a Sony. A couple reasons for that. You could use a Canon SLR just fine, but keep in mind the optical viewfinder is going to be way too dark at F14 and beyond, so it's going to be largely unusable. You'd use the live view off the screen on the back. With the Sonys, of course, I've got live view, and I can use the viewfinder because it's quite sunny today, or the back screen. And on top of that, a lot of the higher end bodies would also give me some stabilization on the sensor, which would be very useful with a lens like this. All right, so we caught a fish and we're trying to get some shots there, but it is quite difficult. I mean, this is not good macro technique. One-handed, you know, trying to get it in there. If we've got bright light, the lens is f14. I don't want to crank my ISO too high, but you know, if I'm not getting bright sunlight and it's too bright, then I'm getting dark shadow and it's too dark. You know, another problem too is even if you've got good light, when you get that lens that close, you start putting a black circle on everything, right? That shadow from the lens itself is now going onto your subject. So you also have some LED lights built here into the front, and that's pretty cool. I've been playing with it. I'm using a USB power pack to run it. It plugs right into the side here with the standard USB port, and then the LEDs come on, and they're quite effective at killing any sorts of shadows. So that's a nice feature that's built into the lens. Again, don't get it wet, but it did help a little bit. Still, I need a tripod. Kai, can you get my tripod, please? Okay, so I'm just doing a little short video here just to illustrate the focus, and You know, it's a very small focusing ring, but it does have a nice smoothness to it. You know, it's a metal manual focus only lens, but you know, I could see you doing some neat video stuff with this. Plus the possibilities of doing video at such an incredible macro. I wouldn't call it planet Earth, but you know, the comm light adapter I'm using has a mount for the tripod, which is great. And the Laowa lens seems to be very rigid in its construction. It's by no means heavy, but you still have this really long extension, and so there's a lot of movement possible there, as you can see. I really would have liked to have seen like a clamp-on adapter. Maybe it's coming, but something with a 1/4 inch that will balance this even better, more towards the middle of the lens. Also, maybe even a way to hold a power bank or some sort of USB device, because obviously asparagus rubber bands is not an ideal setup. So I'm shooting this little rock statue here. Just stacked a few rocks, and I'm just doing a wide angle shot from behind. But what's really interesting about this is just how small it is, but if you look at the photo, it looks quite large in the frame. And I mean, this is a cool thing that we do with wide angles all the time, but normally with something bigger like this. But because this is a macro, I can do a small object like this, get really close to it, and make it look large in the frame, and then have my background nice and soft. And yet, because I'm shooting these tight apertures, I still get a lot of depth of field, and so the background's recognizable. All right, so I've got this water splashing up, and I'm just trying to shoot fast shutter speed stuff. I'm at F14 right now. Really crank the ISO because it's not a lot of light, but it does let me do something really cool that I would not normally want to risk with a regular macro lens. I can get the lens right next to the water and take shots. Even if I'm not putting it in the water, it has the ruggedness and durability. I can do this safely. I mean, yeah, you could do this with something like a GoPro or something like that, but this represents a neat feature that a regular wide angle wouldn't give me. Okay, so we've done some landscapes, we've done some macro. I've had a chance to play with this lens in nature, but I feel like it has other applications, so let's head to another location and see what else we can do with it. I don't know, somehow I thought it'd be more exciting. I don't think he likes it. I don't know, is that to code? I have no idea. Good place to stash stuff. Oh, what the hell is that?
What is what?
Nothing, it's fine. Well, I was worried there were birds living in there, but I guess not.
Thanks, Laowa.
Thanks, Laowa. I do want to talk about one challenge I'm having with this lens. I mean, it's great that it's waterproof because it's got this cover on the front, but this optical glass in the front, if there's anything left on it, little hairs, dust, anything, even tiny stuff. Remember, we're dealing with a close focusing wide angle lens shooting at tight apertures. It's gonna show up, especially if the light hits it or the LEDs are going on it. You can see it, you know, if you're shooting something fairly bright or outdoors, it's not so bad, but the minute you point the lens at something dark, you just get these big spots of dust and it totally kills your contrast and your sharpness. So it can be quite frustrating making sure you've gotten every little piece of lint off there. So Laowa gives you a cable, but no power supply. So I've just got this cheapo USB battery pack. You know, it'll charge a phone kind of thing. But when I plugged it in here on a full charge, I got about 45 minutes out of that LED light. But that's not a lot of time. Although I will say the light is fairly intense and bright. So, you know, it's going to depend what your ambient light is, but on an overcast day like this, I would say I'm getting about 3 stops more light than what I was getting without it. And that makes a big difference when you're trying to shoot handheld or get rid of shadows from the lens itself covering over your subjects on a sunny day. So it's a nice feature, totally built in, but you have to provide some sort of power source for it. The other thing I'm going to say about the lights is they actually, surprisingly, although there's no diffusion, give a nice even light source. Although if you shoot something shiny, as you can see here, I mean examples like a ladybug's back or some stuff in the water, you'll often get this cool little multi-ring light effect. Okay, so how's the best way to use this lens to make imagery? Well, when it comes to stills, I just don't feel like the resolution's that exceptional, and I think part of that's compounded by that notoriously difficult to keep clean front element and also just the design of the lens. As well, you can see the bokeh in the background often has a fairly harsh rendition, although I do like that unique wide-angle macro perspective. Where I think the Laowa lens is really going to shine is actually in video applications, and we shot it on the A7S for that reason. And the fact that it's a 24mm and that it gives you that bug's eye point of view, you can get a really dynamic dynamic motion, and in video, a more pleasing sense of movement, especially as you make it immersive, probing through very interesting situations. So I just feel like when you're purchasing this lens, you're buying it for that unique look and not necessarily the image quality, and that's going to play a lot more to the strengths of video than it is still photography. Okay, conclusion time. So my conclusion on this weird lens is that it is weird, but that's not a bad thing, We're in favor of things that are different and unique and fun, and honestly, there's really nothing else like this on the market for photography. Now, we get into things like medical uses or industrial uses. We kind of just touched on those. There's better purpose-built devices that do that, okay? This is not a SWAT camera for going under doors or anything like that. It's just an interesting and dynamic tool, but it is fun and unique. Now, as a macro lens for nature, as you saw, it does some unique stuff. And it goes well beyond the fact that this does beyond life-size macro. I mean, a lot of other lenses do that. Laowa have a few other macros. The Canon MPE65 goes way beyond it and whatnot, but this let us do unique stuff. Things like insect shots, you could get much closer because, something about the fact that it's a probe and not your whole body going in, I feel that the insects were a little bit more calm, and we've got some shots that I would not really be able to get easily with a regular macro lens. On top of that, just the fact that I can place it into areas I wouldn't normally physically want to go into, or things like water, getting it close to water, even inside water. These are interesting, unique things. The other is the fact that it's a wide angle macro. I did have a lot of fun playing with that different macro look. It wasn't just compressed, ultra thin depth of field. I could actually have some fun with close-up capabilities and still getting some interesting backgrounds or more extensive depth of field. Yeah, you are limited to the fact that you've got a tight aperture. It can be very difficult to use, and I'd say handheld photography, even with the LEDs, is dubious at best. But get it in its right arena, and this lens can do something very unique for your photography. All in all, yes, this device is unique, but that also equals fun. And we get stuck in the same mindset, doing the same thing, same macro shots. This really is about looking at photography with a different eye, a different mindset, and that's refreshing. We always need that in our photography. So if this sounds like it's something you'd be interested in, check it out. It should be available soon. Otherwise, leave comments below. Let us know what you think. Check out our Twitter, see these photos on Instagram, and let us know what you think there too. Otherwise, we'll come back to you with some more fun stuff, hopefully some new groundbreaking stuff. Stay tuned.